Good day, everyone. This is your host, Paul Lawrence Van. Honored to have you all here with us today for an exciting episode. And our guest today, our featured guest, is Laurie Richards. I want to welcome her, and then we'll go through the bio. And I know you're going to really enjoy this particular interview because we're talking about one of the most important things there is, and that is communication. Not just any communications, but communications that makes a difference and resolves conflicts, resolve problems for organizations and individuals. So Laurie, how are you doing today, my friend?
I am doing just great. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm glad we could find this time to do this, Paul. Thanks for inviting me.
I'm honored to have you here. So I'm going to go over Laurie's background, which is really extraordinary. You're going to learn so much more as we go through this interview. So thanks for being with us today. Now, Laurie is a best-selling author 4 times over. Once wasn't good enough for Laurie. 4 times. It's a good thing.
That's right.
She's an international speaker, and she specializes in solving communication challenges, which, again, as leaders, we really have to be able to have those good communication skills. And she's been in the business for 30 years as a part of her business, and she works with executives, association leaders, and yes, politicians, even politicians, to ensure the message delivered is the message received and that conflict is resolved. Now, understand that she provides insightful communications problem solving, and she's the CEO of Laurie Richards Associate. So without further ado, Laurie, we are honored to have you here with your really just amazing, extraordinary talent and expertise. And so we're going to get started right now. So Laurie, yes, welcome to Wealth Academy Podcast. Share a bit about your backstory and what your experiences growing up was like. We really love to learn more about our guests through finding out what they experienced with their developing in their years.
You know what? I grew up in South Dakota on a farm,
Yes.
and I had 2 really amazing speech teachers. And I credit them a great deal with where I am today because they really taught me the importance of being able to communicate. Now, one of them was my English teacher, so she taught me how to write as well. But both of my speech teachers really taught me that my ability to communicate with people, to speak to an audience, could really change the world in a lot of different ways. And I really am a believer that as a marketer, it's not enough to be good at what you do. You have to be able to tell people about it. And I also believe that when we mitigate conflict, that I know it sounds trite, it sounds very beauty queenish, but it can bring peace to the world. And it can make all the difference if we learn to listen, if we learn to communicate effectively, if we learn to really deliver our message, that it makes all the difference in the world. And I grew up in South Dakota, and then I went to work I worked for public broadcasting for a while, but it didn't take me long to figure out that being a reporter in the metropolis of Pierre, South Dakota was not going to support me in a lifestyle in which I would like to become accustomed. So I went to work for advertising agencies, and I actually helped launch many years ago, my age is showing, but I helped launch the pork, the other white meat campaign.
Oh,
that was, it was fantastic. It was an amazing experience. And then about 30 years ago, I hung my shingle, and I travel all over the world, and I teach people how to be better communicators.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I'm sitting here listening to your voice, and I've listened to so many amazing voices over the years. And I'm just listening to your voice, and you just have a really wonderful voice.
Well, thank you.
Really nice to listen to. And I've had about a total of 1,000 interviews over the last several years. So I have a very good ear for sound, for voices, and you have an amazing voice, by the way.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It goes back to my speech teachers again.
Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Bacon. Thank you, Mrs. Swain.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to talk about, Mrs. Swain. And I know the same thing held true for me. People ask me, well, how did you learn how to write? I said, it was my English teachers. So English teachers play a critical role in the development of young adults, for sure.
Yeah. You know what? And it's one of the things that I do to give back now. I moved back to South. I spent most of my career out in Washington, D.C. And then I came back during the pandemic. And I decided that one of the things I wanted to do was to give back. And so I help with the oral interp program, one of the speech programs at one of the local high schools. And that's why, because I think it's so important that young people, and who will then, turn into people who run our world, can really communicate effectively. And it's not only a good philanthropy for me, but it's a great time.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And it's great to give back as well, because it really truly makes a difference, because children are always watching. They're always watching us. They may not seem like it, but they always are.
Yeah.
So that's very wonderful. Now let's talk a little bit about the golden rules that perhaps you received from your parents growing up, in terms of some principles that they have for you and your sibling. And do you have siblings?
I do. I have 3 brothers.
Okay.
And some of them are nearby and some of them less nearby.
Okay.
But I have 3 brothers. So I'm the only girl. And that, I won't kid you, that comes with its benefits.
Yes. As one of 10 children, I know what you mean. I was the oldest son, so my mom pretty much spoiled it.
Yeah. And I think, one of the golden rules that I learned from mom and dad, they never told me that I wasn't able to do something. They told me I shouldn't do things, that were naughty, but they never told me that I wasn't capable. And the other thing, one of the other really big rules that I learned from mom and dad is unconditional love. I never questioned for a moment that mom and dad wouldn't support me in a decision that I made, even if they didn't always like the decision. When I moved from South Dakota to Des Moines, and then from there to New Jersey, and from New Jersey to Washington, D.C., I know they held their breath a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
But
it's really different. The environment is different.
But they never told me that I couldn't, that I wasn't capable of it. And they always supported my decision, whatever that was. And I think that means a lot.
I think so as well. And they want the very best for you, especially being the only daughter.
Yeah.
I had the conversation with my father, and at that time it was 5 boys, 5 girls. He told me, he said, "Son, don't let anything happen to my daughters in school." I said, "But Dad, I don't have any control over them." I can only just be there and hear about it like everyone.
Yes, sometimes.
I know with your 3 brothers, they were also, look after your sister.
Yeah, and still do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Job never ends, not even for me.
Yeah. Well, sort of like, and it kind of took me to writing the parent sitting, what goes around comes around.
Absolutely.
And just recognizing that, mom and dad are going to make decisions that I may not always think that's the best thing, but I'm going to support their right to make that decision. And I'm going to support them, whatever it is that they want to accomplish.
Absolutely. Yes, that's called love. Yes, that's what that is. Speaking of parent sitting, I want to let people take a look at it. Here's the front cover.
There it is.
Please share what this particular book is about and how it can help readers, because I know, to me, this is a very important thing. In our culture in the United States, we don't really, what I consider, compared to other countries, say, for example, Japan, they don't really take care of the elderly. And so I think this is something very important for our country, that people can really understand how important of significance this is to honor those who came before us.
You know what? It's just a universal topic. And I don't think I realized that when I put it together. I had the idea, I decided to write the book, and I put it out there, and it immediately was on the bestseller list, immediately. And when I put it together, my thought was, and you see my mom there, she's my cover girl. When I put it together, my thought was that I have a strong relationship with mom and dad, and everything that what I was looking for when it was about, helping take care of mom and dad, to me, it just felt like so many of them were, Laurie, you got to take care of yourself first. This is a tough job. And I thought, you know what? I didn't want that approach. I really wanted more of this can be so much fun. And yes, it's hard work, and there are things you want to think about and you have to worry about, but this can be more than a chore. It doesn't have to be a chore. It's the Tom Sawyer thing. You can look for the fun in this. And so I put this together I started with, I think I should put together 40 tips. And then before I knew it, I was at like 68 tips for taking care of mom and dad. And it really is about how to not nurse them, but to make sure that they're thriving as they're aging, and recognizing that, sometimes you have to push just a little bit to make sure they're more social than maybe they want to be, or that that the doctor, you're getting all the information, because that's what I learned.
Yes.
They're just like a couple of teenagers sometimes.
Sure.
They don't like to tell everything.
That's right. They're holding on.
Yeah, they like to not just share just everything. And sometimes you need more information just to help them make good choices. And
then to help you make good choices as you are helping them along.
Right. To help sort of, and one of the things that I put in there is that my job isn't parenting them. That's not my job. So it's not my job to tell them what to do the way you might with a child.
Exactly.
But it's more that parent sitting. And I rarely say I'm taking care of mom and dad. I say I'm parent sitting, because it is like that. It's, if you were babysitting, you would play with the child and you would have fun with the child, and you might teach the child, and you listen to the child, and you feed the child, and you make sure they're taken care of and nurtured. Well, it's that same kind of thing.
For sure.
And you're doing it with them.
Yeah, right.
And, like it or not, mom and dad are aging. And I'm lucky enough to have them both. And I came home from Washington, D.C. during the pandemic, and I realized they needed just a little more help than maybe they were letting on.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I made
they want everything as though everything is okay, but oftentimes it's not, especially with the way medicine changed and hospitalization changed, and the whole primary care manager issue came into being. It's all changed now.
And, there are things that it's easy to pretend you're okay for a couple of days when Laurie comes home to visit. It's a whole different thing to pretend for 6 weeks or 2 months or 3 or 4 months. That's a whole different thing. And, they want to put on a good face and stuff. But, when I was home, when I started being home for that long, I was home and actually stayed with them for a couple of months, several months, and realized, what? They say they're doing well, but as soon as somebody leaves, they're both with their feet up and taking, Advil or Aleve because they're aching. Something's aching, So
I know the feeling.
Yeah. And I've learned so much. I've been fortunate to travel with mom and dad over the years, just, to do fun things. We've always done fun things. But you learn little things that you want to make sure that you do. And so the book has everything from, how to manage doctor visits, how to, keep track of records, make sure they don't get scammed. Oh my gosh, scams that are out there.
Big. That's really big.
Travel tips. The thing that I'm getting comments about in regard to the book is the value of the travel tips.
Yes.
How to travel with mom and dad is something.
And there are a lot of benefits for seniors as well.
There are a lot of benefits. And, one of the tips this morning that I was talking to someone about is that when you check mom and dad into the hotel, when you're helping, or when you make reservations, mom makes her reservations, and she asks for a like a handicap room.
Exactly.
People may not realize that sometimes the handicap room is the furthest away from the front door.
Exactly. Yeah.
And, you think, it'll be right inside the front door. No, some of them are furthest. And if mom and dad, and so when we check in, I always ask, now, which room are they in? Is it closer to this entrance or that one? Because it's too hard for mom and dad to even get down to breakfast in the morning.
Exactly.
Because they're at that room.
They don't have an elevator. Yeah.
Well, and, and some of them are, there's an exit on the other end of the hotel.
Exactly.
So I'm sure maybe it's close to an exit, but that doesn't make it close to the front door where you think you're going to leave them off with their suitcase, or you think they're going to be able to have breakfast in the morning, because that's not happening.
Right. And if there's an emergency exit.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So
that's very important.
Yeah, you have to check those things. And mom's gotten really good at checking on those things. And I look out for it for that very reason. They, sometimes they need help getting onto the bed because the bed's so tall.
Exactly. And
so you got to carry your own step because your hotel room doesn't come with a step. So you got to carry your own little, what I bought mom was a like step exercise, step aerobics. I bought her some of those steps. so that she could, get on, because she's not terribly tall. And it's hard. Some of those hotel beds are really high, and, just a lot of little things that you don't think of until somebody mentions it to you, or until you're stuck.
Right.
And,
or if someone, like you said, if they're not thinking about that, once they get there, then they're having to go through that experience.
Yep.
And if they read your book, then they'll understand, oh, let me take this into consideration, or take that into consideration.
Yep.
So that's very important. So this book is really tremendous, for sure.
Well, we've sure had some good response from it. And, speaking about it being a universal thing, Paul, you and I have had this conversation as well, that I'd say 100%, but there's probably one or two that haven't. But just everyone who gets the book or looks at the book turns around and tells me their story.
Yes.
And says, let me tell you about my mom. Let me tell you about my dad. And so I'm keeping a list, because I see a volume 2 in my future.
Exactly. And that's a good thing. We're gonna add some more tips. Now, this is not the only book you have. I think now I'd love to talk about what I consider my favorite. Be Our Bathroom Guest.
Isn't that funny?
Laurie would tell you that I always talk about this book because it's just so everyone can identify. Please share how this idea came up.
You know what? This was years and years and years ago, a family friend. I mean, I think it might have even been a high school graduation gift. They gave me a bathroom guest book. And it's just something that, I just had and I put in the bathroom, and I'm telling you, funny, the things people will write. So when I decided, you know what, I needed an updated one. Mine was full. So I needed an updated one. So I came up with this, and inside, this has just been a hoot. Inside, there's a little survey. So you get to tell them, you get to do the survey and tell them, do you prefer over or under?
Yes.
The obvious question. Right. But it also asks you things like, do you look in the cabinet? Did you look in the cabinet?
Yes. Good question. Very good question. Because most people, out of curiosity, they do.
Now, will they admit it? And then it asks them to do what I call a Yelp-like review. So, how many stars do you give the selfie effect? Is it a good place to take a selfie? Or, was it clean? Or how was the mirror? Or
what's the lighting like?
The lighting and the quality of the toilet paper and the quality of the towels, because this stuff matters. And then there's room in here for them to doodle. And there's room in there for them to just write any other comments. And that's where you find the fun stuff.
Exactly.
You see just how clever people are.
Yes. Yeah.
I went to a home this weekend. Just for just an evening of wine drinking. And I hate to go empty-handed anywhere. So I took a bottle of wine and one of these and gave it to the hostess. And she said, oh my gosh, I'm going to put it in the bathroom. And before everybody left, everybody had signed the bathroom book.
Exactly. It's doing its purpose. That's its purpose.
That's right. That's right. I used it for a shower gift. I'm using it for a wedding gift coming up in a few days. It's just a fun book. It's just a hoot. So it gets a lot of buzz.
And I want people to also, you see this link here that's on the picture with the book. Go there to Amazon, check it out, order cases of it.
Yeah.
Family reunions, reunions, Airbnb, everything.
Yes.
It all comes together.
Yeah, your camper or your Verbo or whatever. Yes. Right. Actually, both of these are available on Amazon.
Okay.
So and the parent sitting is available with Kindle Unlimited if you have that.
Got it.
So you get a huge discount with that. So both of those are available, and I've been very fortunate. Both of these have been bestsellers. They're ringing true to folks. That's for sure. It's been really fun.
Definitely. As as that commercial goes, but there's more. So let's talk about this next book here with one of the people that I really admire, Brian Tracy. I want to share this story real quick with you, Laurie. When I first left the Air Force and I was going into speaking, I read this little article in Success Magazine, and Brian Tracy, and he said, I work from home. I have a home office. And that's one of the reasons why I went into speaking, because of Brian Tracy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You know what?
Let's talk about this, Jewel.
Brian Tracy, I have a couple of connections with him. The first one is that he was one, when I was just starting my career, he was one of the first gurus that I ever went to, and, saw him and just was very, very impressed. And then I've worked for international seminar companies throughout my career, certainly for the last 30 years. And they always sell books at the back of the room. Buy 7 Habits, buy, The Psychology of Winning, buy whatever it is. And Brian Tracy's was one that, he had a series, he's got a series of programs out there. And I just always, I loved his stuff because it's about productivity. It's about strategic thinking. It's about getting the most out of whatever it is you do. And so he invited a group of us as speakers to contribute to this book. And I'm fortunate there I am on the cover with Mr. Tracy, because he's quite, he's probably top 5 when it comes to the best of the best, when it comes to helping people get things done and, set goals, and more importantly, get goals. And so my chapter in this is what I call the magic of the little pink spoon. And what it's about is giving just a little taste, just like in the ice cream store, give people just a little taste of who you are. And that will entice them to do business with you, to hire you, to do whatever it is that, to contract with you, but give them just a little taste of you and let them see who you really are.
Know, like, and trust factor.
Yes, it is the know, like, and trust factor. And it's one step deeper than simply saying, hi, I'm Laurie. It's, you don't really know me, so let me give you just a taste. Exactly. This is what it looks like when I come to speak with you. I do a lot of communication coaching, and I do a lot of teaching from the front of the room. So instead of just, cold calling and saying, do business with me, I will do little videos. I'll do 2-3 minute videos and say, hey, how you doing? Here are 3 things you want to think about if what you want to get done is this. And so they get just a little taste of my style. They get a little taste of what I know. They get a little taste, and they can see, I think she'll fit with our people or not.
Yes. It at least gives them that decision. They can make a decision about it.
Yep. It's like going to the ice cream store. I may not buy a cup of the very first one I taste, but I'm probably going to buy one that I did taste.
Exactly.
As opposed to one that just says, this is the name of my ice cream.
All right. And I have the link here for it as well.
Thank you.
So people can get that one. And we have one last book that I want to share as well, because I know this is a very successful book as well.
You know what? This is my latest book, and it's actually more of a project. And it was the reason that I started doing some of this writing. Okay. And that is because I do a lot of work in technical fields, whether it's computer people, construction people, farmers, scientists, doctors, veterinarians. So I do a lot of work with people who are technical in nature. And then what we find is that they get promoted into supervisory positions, but they've spent their entire career learning how to do their technical thing, rolling up their sleeves and dirtying their hands doing the work. And as a manager, it's a completely different experience.
Absolutely.
Because now it's about communication.
Yes.
Now it's about someone else's performance management. Now it's not my to-do list. It's my team's to-do list. Now it's not that I just communicate with my peers. I need to be able to communicate up the ladder and down the ladder.
So professional growth.
Yes.
Development. Yes.
Yes. So this is really a micro book, just a little book, and it talks about making that transition from individual contributor. I do my thing. I roll up my sleeves and I do my thing, to actually being responsible for lots of people as a supervisor or a foreman or a craftsman.
Sure.
And this will be the first in a series of books, because this is about the actual transition and how you need to kind of see the world a little differently, because your job's
Sure.
very different as a supervisor or a foreman
Absolutely.
or a manager. And then come
Can I get
October,
you to hold that up a little bit more, Lauris?
sure, come
Okay.
October,
Okay.
there will be one on time and priority management.
Yes.
Because this is a huge thing where a lot of people who program computers or run electricity, they like to do their thing.
Right.
But
Exactly.
as a manager, you have to get it done through others.
Yes.
So instead of managing your time as here's my list of things to do, you need to be able to manage their time. And you need to be able to set priorities, because as a manager, one of the most important things you can do is sit back and think.
Yes.
But as a doer,
Sure.
you don't sit back and think, you
Right.
do.
You
And
do.
while you do,
Into the technical aspects.
yeah, you don't take 15, 20 minutes to sit back and just strategically think. And as a manager, your to-do list needs to include sit back and think, strategize.
Yes.
So, you know, there's going to be one on time and priority management. There'll be another on conflict management, another one on how to run effective meetings, another one on how to communicate up the ladder, one to communicate down the ladder, how to delegate. So there'll be a series of books that go with this specifically for that transition. And
so there'll be companion.
Yes. And my thought was, you know what, not just everybody wants to sit down and read a 280-page book,
Absolutely.
but a lot of people will sit down and read a 70-page book.
They sure will.
As long as they get useful, applicable, relevant ideas and tips. So that's the intent of this, is to be the first of a series of, my plan right now is a series of 11 books that will come together for this audience. So
that is amazing. Congratulations on all the books.
Thank you.
You can see that they will be able to have that opportunity. And let me include this as well. And one of the things I also know from your background, that you are a webinar expert. Now, for a lot of entrepreneurs, this is something that they really want to do. All entrepreneurs don't perform or conduct webinars. Could you share that experience also with our listeners and viewers?
You know what? My first degree is in broadcast journalism, and you mentioned my voice, and it's because I did radio, and I did, I teach people how to do media interviews. And when the pandemic hit, of course, a lot of people who are speakers, they went home and sat on their hands. And I said, I can't do that. I need to be doing something. So I set up a studio, and I immediately went to work doing webinars. And so now one of the biggest classes I do is teaching other people how to do webinars, because all of this matters. You notice I've got a couple of books back here, so I've got my microphone here. I've got some decent lighting going. I'm dressed really nicely from here up. And so all of these things matter. And everything from, and we do a lot of exercises. Like one of the exercises we do is I have them look at their phone and take a picture of themselves looking at themselves, and then take a picture of themselves looking at the camera. And it's the difference between this and this. Yeah. And this is just more powerful when you're looking at the camera, but that's a skill. They learn about using teleprompters. They learn about not using teleprompters. They learn how to teach from their webinars and how to run meetings from their webinars in order to get people involved. So that's been a big one since the pandemic. And it hasn't slowed down much. You and I both know the pendulum swings.
Absolutely.
And
the economy.
Yeah. And years ago, it was a joke to have a teleconference like this.
Absolutely.
And then it was, and then everything was this kind of a meeting. And now people are sort of finding where it fits. Yeah. It's not one-on-one, in person, but it's also not the telephone.
Exactly.
It's somewhere.
The
queen.
Jetsons. The Jetsons.
Yes, yes, it's not, yes, sort of like the Jetsons.
Absolutely. We're getting close to the Jetsons.
Yeah. So I do a lot of, with a lot of my clients, that's what they're trying to figure out is where does this fit? And most importantly, how can they get the most of it? You know, so many people are working remotely today.
Yes, absolutely.
And we have to be able to manage remotely. We need to be able to work remotely. You know, you get promotions in
Sure.
great part based on what people feel about you.
Exactly.
Not just your work product.
Absolutely.
And so if your face isn't there, it makes a difference. And if you are working in Chicago and the home office is in DC,
sure,
you still need a presence. And this is a much stronger presence than your email.
And yes, and the platform itself is just so what we call mobile.
Yes.
In other words, it's not one of those type of things that you can't be in touch. You can be in touch. And so when we see the Zoom meetings, for example, we looked at the political cycle now, Zoom is getting all the business.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
No question.
Yes,
Yep.
but it's happening. Now, I wanted to go back, and thank you for that, Laurie. I want to go back a little bit. I know in the beginning you shared that you, of course, worked in Washington. If you can share some more expertise and experience about what that was like working, you don't have to call any names, but how that worked with the legislative folks. Because I worked on Capitol Hill myself in a fellowship program for a member of Congress. I understand it, but for those who don't.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I loved Washington. I really, really loved what I was doing. And I was doing a lot of the same thing. It's just now I'm doing it from South Dakota. And I love the buzz of Washington. I love the museums. I love the, the parks. I just, the history. And I really, really love it. What I do primarily in Washington is help organizations really refine their messages. So whether it's through media training, teaching them how to do a media interview, and you and I both know, and so do all the listeners, some people are really good at it and some people are not. Absolutely. And so my job,
you see it every day on television.
Oh my gosh, every day. And you need to be in the you're good at it pile, because this is where people are getting their image. I mean, think of anyone you have an image of. It was created by some sort of media, whether it was mainstream media, or whether it was social media.
Sure.
The only way you know this person is through this box in front of us, right? So my job is to help. A lot of them, I work with associations where they bring people in we call them fly-ins in Washington. They come in and then they refine their message, like a group of wheat growers or corn growers, or a group of contractors, or a group of, salespeople. And then they go to Washington and they lobby on please vote yes, or please vote no, or consider this. So my job was to help them refine their message and then go to the Hill. And then I also worked with a lot of agencies in Washington because, let's face it, every federal agency out there has to learn to communicate.
They have to.
And some people are good at it and some people just aren't. And so my job is to help them get better.
Yes. And plus they help their funding as well.
Yes. Yeah. And, if it helps, if we've got agencies, if we've got, whether it's state agencies, county agencies, well, my gosh, the most recent assassination attempt of the president, what they have uncovered right now is that the feds weren't talking to the locals, weren't talking to the counties, weren't talking to the state. Well, that's craziness, right?
Absolutely.
But it happens every day in other agencies as well.
Exactly.
So we've got to teach people. And part of that is not just talking and sending information. I mean, let's admit it. How many of us have an email or two that we haven't read? It used to be a pile of papers in our offices. Now it's just a digital pile.
Well, exactly.
Sending an email is not communication.
It's not.
And it's not the listening part of it either. It's a huge part of it is just being able to say, I know this is what I think they meant, but maybe I should ask myself, is it what they meant?
Absolutely. Getting that clear, concise message.
Well, and communication is not what we say. Communication is what is it that they hear when I say it? I give the example of I drink pop.
But
in Washington, D.C., if I ask for pop,
they're like, He's not here. Your pop is not here.
Yeah. But one day I was flying home from DC,
Uh-huh.
and a bunch of us got off the airplane in Minneapolis.
Uh-huh.
And a bunch of us walked up to the bar, and one of the guys ordered a soda.
Uh-huh. The
And
guy
what
was
do you
like,
think he
what
got?
do you mean?
Yeah, they gave him a club soda with a lime, and then he's all mad because he said he didn't get what he ordered. I said, oh, yeah, you did. You got exactly what you ordered in Minnesota.
Exactly.
Soda is a club soda. You know?
That's so funny because on my first duty assignment in Ohio, one of my best friends, he was from Minneapolis. And he said, Paul, let's go get a pop. Pop?
Yep.
What are you talking about? So I learned that way. And you're absolutely right. It's based on the environment or the culture that you're in.
It is.
Right, for what we do in the Midwest. And I spent 8 years of my Air Force career in the Midwest, in Illinois and Ohio. Then I went to Texas, so it's different.
Yep.
Coming up from North Carolina.
Yeah. Well, and in an office environment, you can say, have it to me next week. Yes. Well, if I'm the customer, what I heard was that I get to, I'll have it from you. If you say I'll give it to you next week, I just heard Monday.
Exactly.
But as the person who made the promise, what I think I promised was next Friday. Right. So there's a lot there to it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that's fair. Now you also work with very unique industries as well, construction as well as agriculture. How did that all come into being, and how do you help those industries?
You know what? I grew up in South Dakota, so I'm surrounded by agriculture. And certainly, and I spent the better share of my career doing agriculture in some way. I mean, I have clients who've been my clients for 30 plus years, and they do crop protection, or, like I said, I worked for the National Pork Producers Council. And I worked, when I started with the advertising agency in Philadelphia, I pitched to one of our companies. I said, you should sponsor that farmers learn to speak up for themselves and go to Washington. This is before PACs were big. Go to Washington and tell Washington what they want.
Right. Advocate for themselves.
Yes, advocate for themselves. So my job was to train them how to design their message. Exactly. And we did that. The first year we did that particular sponsor sponsored 9 different industries in agriculture: cotton, corn, wheat, sorghum. Oh gosh, I've done roses.
They're on the stock market.
Evergreen. The entire, everything in the commodity list.
Exactly.
And today, most of those leadership programs are still in play. And I get to play a part of them in some of them. So I'm really happy. Yeah. And
then where I came from, it was tobacco.
There you go. Well, there you go.
It kind of went down.
The tobacco industry is down much further from when I started, certainly. So then when I've done agriculture for a long time. And then I had a construction person sitting in the room one day, and you never know where your contacts are going to come from. And he said, you know what, Laurie, I'd like you to come speak to my company. And I thought, construction, this is different. And it didn't take me long to figure out that the construction industry as a whole is just farmers with different tools.
Exactly.
They're primarily family owned. Mm-hmm. They like to hand their business down to their family.
Exactly.
They like to work with their hands.
Legacy.
Yes. And so much of it is very, very similar to the ag industry. And so I've been doing business in construction. Right now, they're about hand in hand for my biggest clients. That construction and agriculture are my 2 largest industries, followed by government agencies.
Oh, definitely. Yes. And then of course, with construction, once we can get this economy going again, building houses is going to be really big.
Well, and right now, construction has over 750,000 open jobs. I just did a program with media training with a construction company, and they had some industry trends they identified. So there are jobs everywhere if you want to work in construction. It's there for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Laurie, thank you so much for that. We're about to come to an end here, but I would love for you to share some wisdom, some inspiration to those who are listening, people who may think that their communication skills are not where they should be, and you can really empower them to learn more, and they can learn more through you.
I would be happy to help out any of your listeners. Some of the most important things I've learned about communication are, first of all, it's not enough to be good at what we do. We have to be able to tell people about it. And that means sharing it in such a way that they can hear. And in order to do that, we have to have three things. And if we're missing any one of these three things, we will fail every time in our communication. And if you're not sure, watch the way you feel and respond to people communicating to you, either in person or in this little box. And those three things are: first, charisma.
Yes.
We have to like you.
Yes.
Like it or not, it's part of the deal.
Like
Trust. Yes. Trust. If we don't trust someone, the only thing we'll listen for are the lies.
Sure.
The only thing we'll listen for are, oh yeah, he's just trying to take me. He's just trying to take advantage, just trying to sell me. Yep. And the third one is credibility. It's not that you can get ahead just by being likable. You have to have credibility first.
Yes.
You know, being likable will get you friends, but it won't get you the job unless you've got the credibility with it. So those three go hand in hand. And if we're missing any of those three things, we'll fail. So your communication is more than the words you say or the words you write. It's establishing that charisma, that trust, and that credibility. And that's what makes the communication happen.
Well, I tell you, that ended on a really great note. And thanks to you, Laurie Richards, that you continue to shift the atmosphere for people, organizations, executives, nonprofits, associations, and of course, we're looking at our politicians. Of course, I'm here in the Washington, D.C. area, so I've experienced it firsthand, and you are right on point. Right on point.
It's fascinating to watch the development when you work with some of them. I've been very fortunate to work with some pretty high level folks, and it's really fun to watch them really turn into who they are.
Yes.
With their communication, to really be able to communicate who they are.
Yep. Absolutely. So, Laurie Richards, thank you so much for being our featured guest today. And of course, for our listeners and viewers, it's episode 266. Go to Apple Podcasts, rate and review, provide Laurie Richards with a 5-star rating on this particular episode. She's all about breaking down those barriers to communications to help people to become really more competitive in their industries and top of mind in their industry. So she's made a tremendous difference today. And remember, it's all about that charisma, that trust, and also about having that ability to have your credibility in place. And you've heard it from Laurie. Again, let's take a look at her book, because we don't want you to forget that. Parents.
Yes. If you have parents, that's for you.
Yeah. This is very important. And then I have to go back to my favorite. I have to. Get this book, everyone. Be our bathroom guest. You would thank Laurie for this later, okay? This is my favorite book.
I know it is. I know it is.
So
I'll hook you up.
All right. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much, Laurie, and for all our listeners, thank you so much. And don't forget to go out and rate and review Laurie Richards' episode. And I have all of her contact information here, www.laurierichards.com/resources. Laurie, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. This will not be the last time. We're going to have to do something else.
Thank you.
Podcast and even more. So have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you on the next episode of Wealth Academy Podcast.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Paul.
Yes, thank you.